All right, so here we are with Meredith Rom. Hey, Mer. So I'm really excited about this conversation, and I was reading this book, Just Be, that Meredith so kindly sent my way, and it's been so incredible that I haven't been able to put it down. And when I read this, I feel like it's a motif of the spiritual journey. You know, I was reading this and I was like, whoa, like there's so many similarities that I'm seeing that Meredith went through that, as part of my own journey too. Like I went to Thailand other than India and went to go see John of God other than Amma. But we all have this, I feel like a lot of these teachers have like this deep yearning to really go out there and to listen to our heart and to trust and have faith in the unfolding and the unfoldment of our life and our purpose. So before we even go any further, I just want to say thank you for having the courage to write this book and taking the time to share your story. It's been so beautiful. It's been such an adventure, and it's just reminding you to really get out of your comfort zone and to really have faith of how this is looking, especially when you get out of your own way of thinking and feeling like the ego's coming and being like, oh, like I'm the one leading the show. But it's when you allow yourself to be in that space of grace and total surrender, you know you're protected, you know you are safe, you know you are aligned, you know you are being that servant, that devotion, the bhakti, that devotion. And so I just wanted to say, before we even go any further, thank you so much for your devotion to your path and to your soul's evolution and to trusting in the divine guidance that it's so crucial, especially during these times, that we need to really cultivate that relationship. So I just really wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, I'm really breathing that in. Thank you. I appreciate your words so much.
Oh, I love this. Okay, so let's dive in. I guess I should say. So there's a few things that that really came to me. Was like when you started your story, you're talking about how you had this like gut intuition to move to San Francisco and to just trust, go on and find a sublease, and then I'll listen to one step at a time towards that. How has that been for you since, you started until going to where you are right now, like having this conversation? What has been the guiding thing that has allowed you to really feel protected and safe as you embark on this journey?
Well, I think that in the beginning it was definitely really scary. And as I've had more of that affirmation of things working out along the way, there's just more and more trust. And it's like, okay, I've been there before, I can do this. But definitely in the beginning, it was kind of unworldly to think of moving from the place I had known my whole life, New York, and getting on a plane and moving to a city I had actually never even been to. I went once, but 2 weeks before moving there, just to check out the place I was going to live and make sure everything was okay. But yeah, when I think back on what really, like the beginning of it all, what really opened me up to my intuition, my inner guidance, taking those steps, one was that life was just getting really hard as I was going. As I continued going on the path I was on, things just started getting harder and harder. And I came to a place of surrender, of just like, what's next? What do I need to do? Just to give the people listening a little picture of where I was at in my life. When I was in New York City, I was um, studying to be a designer and a photographer and art historian, and applying to jobs to be working at museums and galleries, which were all things I really loved and enjoyed. But when I really got down to imagining myself working 40 plus hours a week in a air conditioned environment and working at the computer day after day. I just felt like there must be something more than this. Like, I feel like I'm here for something more than this. And at that time, a few things started happening. One, I started having chronic pain come up in my body. It was like literally my body telling me, you know, you can't be working this much, this hard. And to my coping mechanism was actually distracting myself from that, what I was feeling. I would go to sugar, I'd go to caffeine, I'd go to alcohol, I'd go to things that would take me out of my body rather than going into what I was feeling. And it was the same way for my emotions. I went through a really difficult breakup, and instead of really feeling my pain, I was really kind of distracting myself from it. And it wasn't until, lo and behold, finding my first yoga class and the teacher just opening the space for us to go deeper into our bodies and to really feel what is underneath the surface, what are our emotions trying to tell us, what are our bodies trying to tell us. And it was like something clicked, and it was like, wow, my body is telling me that something needs to change. And I don't know what that is, but can I open myself to receive some higher guidance? And at this point, I wasn't, you know, I always had a sense of spirituality, but I didn't have any form of religion that I was like I wasn't going to church, anything like that. But the yoga room became my sanctuary, and that space where I tapped into something deeper within. So I think that first moment of really beginning to feel the weight of just some pain and difficulty I was experiencing, and insecurities and things that were coming up. I remember also being really terrified of expressing myself, and also just terrified of what would happen, of the unknown, what would happen in these places. But there was just this little voice that became louder as I went into the yoga space, as I went into feeling my body and my emotions. That was like, I think you're going to be okay. You can listen to this. And I remember telling my roommate, her name is Lucy in the book. I changed everyone's name. But yeah, I remember telling her that I was thinking of moving to San Francisco. And I thought she was going to think it was so crazy. But she was just like, girl, you should do it. Like, what else in your life are you going to have this freedom, this space, this time to really explore? And I'd seen so many people just going from, you know, finishing college, going into the good job, going into the next thing.
It's like the mundane in a way, you know?
Ladder, yeah. And so I decided to take that opportunity and to try something totally different. And it was 10 days after being in San Francisco that a man came up to me in the park and said, I don't know why I feel the need to tell you this, but I feel like you're supposed to meet this saint that I'm going to see this weekend. Her name is Amma. She travels around the world giving people hugs, and she's considered to be enlightened. And I was like, is this a guru? Like, what? I think I had read Eat, Pray, Love at some point around this time, which is
How long were you practicing yoga before this?
Only maybe 6 months.
Okay.
Not long. Yeah, maybe a little longer. I'd say maybe a year. But it was still fairly new. And yeah, so I said yes. I was like, this is unusual and weird, but I'm gonna go. And I went to see Amma. I remember entering into that temple and just feeling like I have never seen spirituality celebrated like this before. And that was so magical. And when
it's like being in those people's presence in itself is just like, whoa, this is really familiar, but really intense. There's like that, some kind of like remembrance, I feel, when you're around these like enlightened living saints.
Yes, definitely. Something was there, and I felt that when I hugged her too, just such a state of total presence. It was just the beginning of, okay, this is that something more. this is something that I need to keep seeking and exploring and learning about. So that was the beginning of what became, many year journey. This was back 7 years ago now, 6, 7 years ago when I first met Amma. And yeah, and so a lot has unfolded since that time, but the book is about my travels through India. So it kind of takes you in the beginning of being in New York, making those decisions to move and change things, and stepping into the total unknown and seeing what would come from that.
Because you also lived in her ashram
Yeah, so
in India.
it was a few months after meeting her in San Francisco that I felt the calling to go to India and to spend time there. So I had a one-way ticket, and I spent my first month at Amma's ashram, and then over to the different places throughout India.
I love that. There is one quote that really stuck out for me in your book. I was thinking a lot about this because I wrote like a blog article like months ago, maybe a year ago, about how you are the guru you've been waiting for. How it's you are that, it's not something outside of you. And there's this quote that was in your book that's on page 80 that you said, I learned that the job of the guru is not so much to help people attain enlightenment. It was rather the devotion, the bowing of the ego that allowed the spiritual process to take place. The guru was just there as a guide, a light on the path. I loved that. Because, and guru is from darkness to light. And, we have to be able to have the courage to face our darkness, have the courage to face our pain, have the courage to choose again. And I feel like, with you having that faith and you being able to dive in and you being able to separate yourself from this life that, that was familiar to you. You've had to go through like really crazy. I was laughing when you're talking about your train ride. You're like, because I had one of those train rides too in Thailand. I was like, oh my God, my bed is covered and infested with mosquitoes. And it was just like, what the hell did I just sign up for? So when I read that, I was like, oh my God, I totally know what you're feeling right now. So I just wanted to talk about, what does it mean to you to really allow yourself to go to a space that is unfamiliar and uncomfortable? And how has that helped you evolve into the being you are today?
Yes, I have a lot to say in that, but first I just want to touch on what you mentioned before with that bowing and offering up to the guru and our teachers. I think the spiritual path really invites us into a state of humility and humbleness. And more lately, I've been working with angels, guides, ascended masters, and feeling their presence with me. And I am seeing so much that they are always here to help us. And we just need to ask. We just need to ask for help. And in those
Totally.
something is going wrong or something feels difficult or challenging, it's like, okay, first step, how can I take responsibility here? Where can I own up to anything? Maybe a place I made a mistake or something that I took part in causing the situation, but then like ask for help and just say, okay, I recognize this is what's happening right now. And I ask for divine guidance to come in. And I feel, and I offer it up. And I feel like every time I do that, there's just a little more breath immediately. It's just like, okay, there's more space. Two, the miracles always come. They always come. And that is the more and more that I've just surrendered to that, it's like the more and more that it comes. And I just can trust in that now. I can trust that the miracle will come. And that might not look exactly like what I thought it would, but in some way, if we have set our lens to be looking for those miracles, it will. They'll show themselves to us.
Oh, usually like that's like the prayer, this or something better, right?
Yeah. But I wanted to speak to the putting my places in the challenges or the discomfort and the growth that comes from that. So I think that for me, for me at least, from my experience, I always need to be growing to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I get into that place of stagnancy, it's like, okay, it can be kind of boring. And I think that's just part of life. And if we're on the spiritual path, we're here to ascend and we're here to keep evolving and growing. And that really gives me a sense of peace and contentment. And a place where I have really stepped into, like one of the places that has been so scary for me, is sharing my voice and really stepping up to be seen. That has been like, I think back to that girl, it brings tears to my eyes, who was going to those yoga classes and thinking of that teacher leading this room of like 50 to 100 people in these like packed New York City yoga studios. And I just remember feeling like, how does she do that? How could I ever do something like that? And just seeing, like, witnessing someone in their power in such a profound way, I had no idea. I knew that that was something I wanted in my life, and I had no idea that that would be possible for me or how to get there. And when I think back on just my experience with my voice, like back in high school and college, like something shut down for me probably when I was about 13 years old, I think. And it was just like the self-consciousness and the feeling of really stepping up to be seen. It was a pretty visceral feeling of like, something terrible is going to happen if I do this, something really, and I carried that for so long. And I think taking really small, loving steps in the beginning, when I taught my first yoga class, when I was with my yoga teacher training group, and we had these satya circles where we had to speak a different prompt every day and speaking our truth into the group. Such intense energy would move through my body, and I'd feel like I couldn't breathe, but like I just loved myself through that. And like, okay, there's something here, there's something that needs to be healed in the throat chakra. And I think there are a lot of women who at different levels experience this at some point in their life, like opening their throat chakra, stepping more into that space of it's okay and it's safe for me to be seen. So what has really been helping me, what I notice now, like I spent years just like, okay, I'm a yoga teacher. And then even I joined a Toastmasters group, and I was public speaking. I was practicing using my voice, and it was going really well. I actually did really well when I would stand up and give these speeches. And but there would still be that like seed of terror of just like, well, something terrible is going to happen if I do this. What is this feeling? And it wasn't until this summer that
This summer
that I started to feel like that wasn't there anymore.
I love that.
That terror. And I was kind of sitting with that, like, what shifted? What is changing? And the big piece of it, I think, is one, like our world is ascending at a very faster rate. It's safer for women to step up and be seen and to use their voices. So just the collective. But I really attribute some of it to these ascended masters that I've been connecting to, Mary Magdalene in particular. This summer I was in a circle, and it was about Mary Magdalene. The leader in the group just started speaking of these wounds that she carried in her lifetime. And one of the wounds was the fear of being stoned for stepping up to speak and to hear her voice and to be seen. And I just got full body chills because this, she said, was a wound that was passed on for generations and centuries. And of course, you're probably familiar with all of that, and the women feeling fearful of really being seen or stepping up to lead. But what's happening now is that there's this prophecy that 2,000 years after Jesus was crucified, that there would be a great awakening and the feminine would rise and restore her balance in balancing with the divine masculine. So I see that happening now, and it's in myself, it's in people around me. It's safe now. I feel so, so grateful that I have this opportunity to be here at this time and to share my voice. And as I share my voice, it is healing all of those centuries of wounds that the
All right. As you're saying that, it's just been confirmation for me because I was in Oregon for the eclipse, and it was the moon and the sun making love, and the divine feminine finally had her time in the spotlight to be like the main attraction, the moon. And I felt like deep priestess healing, just this past month. And Mary Magdalene has been a huge guide for me the past couple years. I had like an episode of the podcast with Faye Wilder, who's like, she's like BFFs with Mary Magdalene. And
puts me on my path too.
So. Yeah, the best. So deep love. But I've been feeling this like rise of the feminine too, and I know for a long time I'm double Mercury, and I've always been one with my voice. But I hear you when you're saying like it was scary to get out there, and I think that had a lot to do with past life trauma. That we have. We're priestesses, and there's been so much for a priestess, it's to be able to navigate through the darkness by shining our light. So we have to be able to navigate through this space of duality and being able to be in that neutral space and recognizing that all of it is, right? And so when you're saying that, like this year, you really feel like you've been able to speak your voice, which is so silly to me because it's like, she's got a podcast, like Rising Women Leaders, like, and I'm going to be on an episode coming up soon. But we have, it's like now I'm seeing more priestesses really feeling like they have that courage and they feel safe to really speak up and share. Because, it goes back from, like you were saying, lifetimes and generations of like the burning of the witches or the, bringing down women or trying to limit our bodies. All of these things have been kind of part of our history, but now we are writing her story, right? Like now this is our time to, and I'm seeing more women share their books. Like for upcoming episodes, like most of the people that I've had are all women who have been writing books, and they're all feeling courageous enough to go out there and write their books. Like I even am feeling that, where I wrote like 2,000 words yesterday and I was like, oh my God, it's happening. But it takes courage to really share your story. Yes. And to really put yourself out there, especially when you're talking about those really vulnerable and scary things. So the fact that we can remember that we have these guides and teachers and friends and people to reach out to, deities and what have you, spirit guides, animals, they can really help us through these times. And I think more than ever, we really need to share our stories, and more than ever, we need to be vulnerable and authentic to allow ourselves to create a more authentic world. Like I love when you're talking about like, to you, if you're stagnant, like it's like soul sucking because you're in this space of constantly wanting to grow. And I totally get that. Like we're in this space of expansion, right? That's why we're here. We're here to heal and to like be in our bodies. This is our body's journey through this lifetime, not so much our souls, because our soul doesn't have time. So I just really wanted to thank you for that, and to say that, like to give permission for other women to start sharing their stories too, and to be okay with where they've been. I think that's the biggest thing. Like there's so many people that carry a lot of shame from their journey up until now, but it's more so being able to look back at that younger Meredith or that younger woman or that younger girl and just love her. Because her awareness during that time was not in alignment with her soul's truth, because there's all these other things that she's had to learn to trust, as you said, trust that voice within, trust the intuition. She had to learn to trust others, because as women, we've grown up in a society where, you know, it's been very like survival or like really like catty with women for a long time. But I think all that came from the stem from all of that has just been women in pain. And so that's why like I appreciate you doing a lot of work with women. And like you have the Sovereign Circle, right? The Sovereign Circle coming up too. And so what's your intention with that?
Yeah. So this came to me. This program has been with me for years. And actually, I ran like the first time I ever started being a coach, like 3 or 4 years ago, I ran like a mini version of this program. And it was before I knew what it would be called. And it was just so beautiful and transformational for the women that participated. And my intention with this program, so sovereign, that word, I think of that word as boundless and free and autonomous and in your power, recognizing that we are powerful beings, and it's safe to be powerful, and also we can use that power to be in service. And I think of the archetype of the queen. So the queen is someone who is just like fully standing in her power, and actually the more that she says yes to that power, the more she can help and serve and be there for her people. Like she uses that power in a way of giving it back and being there for the people, having the voice for the
It's
people.
because it's overflowing.
Yeah. Yeah. And she says yes to it. So I think a lot of my life, I kind of suppressed my power. I was like, no, like not safe. But she says yes to that. And with that usually invites an intensity of energy that we need to learn how to work with. And especially when I think of times public speaking, you know, you can think of the intense energy that moves through your body, but it's like, yes, this energy is my power and I'm here to be of service and give that back. And then the other piece for me is just how much I have cultivated courage and strength from being in circle with other women and being able to share my authentic truth and my vulnerability and my openness. And so when I put this program together, it's online for 7 months with women. That's just really what I envisioned, you know, having the live calls of being in circle with other women. And I also really imagine, you know, women circle in person are really beautiful and transformational, and I know there are some people that don't have that right now, and like to be able to come together with other like-minded women who are going to encourage you and support you and believe in you, that could be, for some people, that is really like unheard of, and it's something that is so
Foreign.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had one call with a woman who was sharing that the women that she was friends with, like, would just compete with her, want to pull her down, and it was just unheard of her. And I was like, sister, when you in this space, like these women are they're like you, like they're gonna see your light, and they are going to be so inspired and want to uplift you in that. And that's what I've gotten to experience in my life, and that's just like been so healing and powerful. And you know, I think of Faye, who we mentioned before, just when I was going through kind of some dark times of thinking about my book coming out months before it did, like women like her just lifting me up and saying, you got this, you can do this. And that was just so meaningful and really helped me cultivate that courage and that strength to share. So actually the balm of this wound that I mentioned before, of the fear of stepping up to be seen or to speak, the balm is really sisterhood. Because when we feel like we have something to fall back on in our lives, or like we have people holding us up from behind, they're that support system, it feels so much safer to go out and to take those courageous steps, or to write the book, or to
Mm-hmm.
speech, or to whatever it is that wants to be birthed through us. Yeah, so I could say more about the program, but each month is going to be based on the chakras. And we start with the root chakra, self-love and just really setting the foundation in body wellness. And then even like I want all the women, this is something I've been doing, decluttering the home, like letting go of things that no longer serve you, do not represent who you are today and who you are becoming. We need to create that space to really invite in the things we want. And then each month is going to work up to another chakra, and there are guest teachers, there are private coaching with me, there's the sisterhood calls, there's wisdom recordings every month. So and what I see for the final ceremonial call is each woman stepping into her higher self.
I love that.
This is a space where we are going to witness each other come in full adornment of our higher selves that we're going to connect to more and more throughout the program. But witnessing our vows of what do we claim for ourselves and how we are going to take supreme care of ourselves in this life, and also how are we going to contribute, how do we want to give and be of service in this life. So that's going to be a beautiful witnessing.
I love that.
At the end.
So, what's been interesting as you were saying that, what came to me was that I can just hear women right now being like, how do I find sisterhood like that? How do I find my people? And I think a lot of that is through authenticity, right? A lot of that is through being vulnerable. Because I know, like in my life, in this past year, in like the past year is the first time I've really felt like sisterhood in a long time. Like people who see me and people who understand me, or people who can help me, people with non-judgment, women who are holding space for me. Right. And I think as we work on healing our own feminine energy and finding that within ourselves, we end up, the inner is creating the outer, and we become a magnet to find and attract ourselves to more sisters and more women that are ready to help us. So with that being said, like, how do you feel? Because I feel like so much of our culture and our society was so male dominant, and now we're going back more into this feminine. How do you feel that this feminine energy is not only helping us with our lives, but also with business?
Yeah, it is. Well, we're being asked to approach business in a new way. And I think that's what I've been learning the last year or so. Is even though I was very feminine, most of my life, I was actually operating from a very masculine way of doing things, achieving, pushing, forcing, making things happen. And I recently heard this metaphor of a woman giving birth. And so if you think of a woman who it wants to birth like a creative project or something in the world, so she feels a calling to create something, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a business, maybe it's something. If the woman you imagine a woman giving birth to a baby, if she can surrender to that process, there will be so much more ease, and there will be this universal life force that just moves through her, and that baby will be birthed. And actually, when we try to make things happen before the natural ripeness, there's more struggle.
Yep. I laugh because I've seen it in my own life. Yeah, ain't that the truth? I think it's like, because so many of us, we have become conditioned in a society now that is like instant gratification. But there are still the laws of the universe that are saying things will unfold as they should, and things flow as they should, but you have to be willing to get out of the way and surrender. Because there's a difference between surrendering your power and surrendering your power. Like, you can surrender your power over people or over situations, but you can still find that power within to be gentle and in that feminine. There's two very different, I see there's two ways of power. There is a masculine and there is a feminine flow of power. Like there can be, and it's all based on intention, right? Is your intention for the power because you're coming from the space of lack, Or is the intention from your powers because you recognize that you are abundance, and you realize that in your authentic truth and your authentic being is your power? And so you were even talking about that before, about, coming out and speaking and starting to share and tapping into that power.
Yes. Yeah. And it's really interesting that my book ended up being called Just Be, because I feel like that's the lesson right now. I mean, for me and myself, and also I think in a greater collective.
Oh, yeah.
Be, and the being is the feminine. Being is, doing and achieving is much more of the masculine energy. And now, as we're restoring the balance, we're thinking, asking, like, how can I just be? How can I be in that state of receiving or resting or surrendering or accepting? Because those have been pushed aside for a long time. And I think that bringing those qualities into a business will create more flow and more ease. And I've been starting to really practice that myself, and seeing that it is true. We don't need to, whenever I get into like a fear state or something, and I feel myself start to grip on, and it's hard. But if I like soften that grip and like, okay.
You're able to recognize it now.
Yeah.
And that's everything.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, maybe I need to take a bath. Or maybe, I think
you just need to slow down.
I think we talked about this before, but like boundaries, and being able to set boundaries in a way, or really honor and take care of yourself when you need to, or take things off your plate. So nourishing, and will connect you to something deeper, where the doing will just happen. It won't need to be like X, Y, like a million things to do on the to-do list. The doing will just like come forth from this wellspring of the being.
Well, I think a lot of that, like, what prevents us from being is the doubt. Like the doubt that it's not going to happen, or the doubt that you're going to run out of time, or the doubt of like self-doubt of who am I? Like doubt. I remember I had a friend he used to call me a doubter, because when I was like at the crux of like my shit, right? He'd be like, "You're a doubter," and I was like, "Oh, whatever," But the truth was that at that time I was doubting my power, I was doubting my brilliance, I was doubting life. And when we have those doubts, it's harder for us to be in that flow of service, to be in that flow of our purpose. And I feel more than ever like we need more people to be in their purpose, more people to be, right? We need more people to authentically share their gifts and their light and their truth, because it is a far greater energy and a far greater vibration when we are radiating. Because when we do those, we come from that space of radiance, and that radiance is what is the blessing of everyone that we meet and everyone in our life. So how have you seen like your journey unfold, and this beautiful and the synchronicities come through your life by learning to trust and to honor the journey and to trust the process of the unfolding of who you are, the unfolding of what God, universe, spirit has in mind? What has that been like for you?
Trusting the process. Yeah. Just needing, in times where I have the doubt or the struggle, I really do try to come back to my personal practices, my meditation practice really being a key one, and having just explored a lot of different meditation styles in my life and finding what works for me. And I think, yeah, the trust, it comes from within, and it just needs to be a surrender, I think, in that moment of when it's no longer working, when things are no longer working the way they're going. How can I surrender and then come back again to that asking for help, and then just trust again? Let me think of an example. One example that's coming to my mind. So I I got engaged.
Yes, congrats.
Thank you. It was like last March. And actually, for a while, I had really been feeling a strong desire to get married. And I've been with my partner for almost 6 years now. And we're, really a beautiful, I feel a divine, coming together, a very beautiful match. And that whole process, I think what I really needed to learn was releasing my attachments. And I was so focused for a little while on the outcome of like, okay, one day, like I'm gonna be, married. I'm gonna have the house. I'm gonna, my mind was like, was again tightening its grip on the outcome of what I wanted to create. And I went on this 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat last Christmas. 10 hours a day of meditation, 10 days straight, total silence. And I think it was a few days in, I think it was on Christmas Day when I was meditating, and being that much in my practice and being in the experience of impermanence and being in the experience of, I had this like light bulb go off of like, oh, I've been the one, like any of my misery that I've been, any of this like suffering, I've been the one creating that.
Mm.
I've been making myself miserable. I've been so, and it was like that moment of like, oh, this is me doing this. Like I can change this. And I just remember crying in my meditation and feeling like, I am so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry to my partner. I'm so sorry to the universe. I'm so sorry that I have been like trying to force a certain outcome here. And I really I let that go and was just like, what is really truly of importance to me? And the image of my partner came up, and I just saw like what a beautiful being he is, and how lucky I am to be in this person's life, and how the love we get to share. And I just thought of a few really simple things that I love doing with him. Like I love when we teach or we sing together, and I love when we get to spend time in nature together. We have this back field, and I have a cat, and she'll like come on walks with us in the back field. It's just so beautiful. But even like going out to dinner sometimes, and all these like memories of like, oh, I have it all. And like whatever the outcome looks like, I just need to let that go. I need to release that. And and I did. I feel like all of these like really intense desires I was holding at that time, I just started to wipe the slate clean, and really in an experiential way come back into my gratitude. And when I reunited with my partner after all of that, I apologized and I said, I am so sorry. Whatever pressure I've been putting on yourself, whatever outcome I've been like exuding that I need to happen, like I am letting that go. There's so much that we have, and there's so much I appreciate. And it was 3 months later he proposed. So it's just like, whoa, okay, there is that need to really let go. And I think that is, it's hard work. It's not easy. Just
It takes practice.
yeah.
Especially if we grew up super controlling or manipulative, or like in that space of fear that like it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. We are in such this like negative balance that as we practice and keep practicing and practicing, we get to heal until we get to that space of neutrality, and then the cup overflows. And I think that's something to always remember is like, that, because surrender has been such a huge thing for me lately too. And to get out of my head on the way that I think it's supposed to look, and to trust that it's going to be far greater than I could ever imagine. That's why the prayer is always this or something better.
Yes. And so now I just need to keep doing that. Desires will come in, and it's like, I think I know what I want. I think I know exactly what I want it to look like. But it's like, no, let's offer that up again, and let's be in collaboration with the universe, because that is so much easier and more enjoyable.
So less stressful.
Yeah.
It allows you to realize that it's not all about hustle. It's really about flow too. Like, yes, there could be things that we need to do or steps that we need to take in order to make it happen. Like, it's not just going to be like, oh, the wiggle of the nose and it happens like this. It's like we have to do the work and be dedicated enough to be able to be honest and to face that.
Yeah.
So I love that story.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah. So, I mean, now that we're coming fall equinox, and we're coming into this like harvest time and this time of growth, and kind of, it's like, to me, it's kind of slowing down a little bit. I see fall. Because it's like, I mean, there's obviously like the energy of like the back to school feeling that we've kind of been programmed in. But to me, fall is also that time of like the calm before the storm, because the holidays can bring up a lot for people too. And you were doing your vipassana during like the holy times, and I think that in itself is so powerful and so beautiful. And so, I mean, what would you say is really guiding you for the rest of this year right now and into the year coming up? I mean, this has been a really intense year, like super wild. And what do you feel is like has been your guiding force, other than your ascendant masters and praying and your devotion? But what do you think is, what do you feel is really coming out from all of this?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I felt a significant shift when the eclipse happened, because the the book came out the day after the eclipse,
Wow.
and I felt like I was really for a while like in kind of that more masculine structure. What's happening next? Let's move things along. And now it feels so much more of the feminine energy of opening to receive and to respond and to share and to just be in the joy of that. So I'm thinking I have a couple of events coming up this weekend, which will be really beautiful, where I'm going to be sharing the book and doing kirtan and leading that. But I think a big piece of like this, the end of this year for me, and maybe I speak on behalf of some people listening, is rest. And I think I really like a lot has happened these last couple of years. I think energetically, personally, and as a collective level. And I feel like that's really being asked of me now. Rest and kind of take it slow things down.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing too. Slow and steady wins the race, and it's just like slowing down allows you to reconnect with that breath, and that breath helps us remember that we are living in this body right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sitting with the decision right now to possibly go back to India this winter. And I'm
That's amazing.
feeling that call. So I haven't been. In January, it'll be 7 years since I first went and had the whole idea for the book and everything. But I've been feeling called to go back and to see Amma at her ashram and just spend a little time there. And it's a little bit, the reason I haven't, already bought a ticket yet is because this will be the third Christmas in a row that I haven't seen my family. And like, I see them other times of the year, but for some reason I keep feeling called to like really be doing spiritual work during that time. And I think that's probably a challenge for a lot of us, being these, we're in this physical third dimensional world, and also really feeling like we have work to do in these higher realms. And so we'll see what happens, but I'm feeling like rest and maybe going back to India. And
How long do you see yourself in India? Do you feel like it's going to be another thing like your journey where it's like, oh, I don't know, I'm just like kind of hanging out? Or
I feel like I've taken on more responsibilities in my life here in the physical plane in California that I really love and enjoy. Something else I'm learning this year is like commitment and responsibility and being grounded. So I feel like if I go to India, it'll only be maybe 3 weeks, and and my journey of the book was 6 months when I was there. But I think that would be enough. And I'm gaining so much here right now. I'm doing a priestess initiation, a 13-month program with another teacher, and just that's really calling me to be grounded, because it's a lot of it's in person. So I have to be here several times a month to show up to those circles. And I'm teaching a new yoga class at the end of this month, a Sunday morning class. We're calling it Yoga Church. And like, that's a huge commitment to be here every weekend and to like grow that community. But that also feels like what's being asked of me now is to ground and to rest and to show up in ways that are just kind of more anchoring.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do is that like you're at a point now where you don't feel like you need to go to distant places to find yourself. Like you are finding yourself exactly where you are. Because I know, speaking for myself, like I'm traveling on these very spur of the moment trips when I'm feeling like completely disconnected, or I'm yearning for that grounding, or I need help in that way, that I need to go completely outside of myself to step into unfamiliar ground. But when we allow ourselves to go into that space of breath, we find the infinite abundance that is within us. And it's up to us to just know that it's enough for us to just find that through silence, through meditation, through intention, like intentional service and life and devotion. I don't know. I'm seeing people travel, but they're not traveling because they feel like there's something outside of them. Like they're traveling because they already see themselves as whole, and they are going to really enrich more of that depth of who they are.
Right. Yeah, and there's different medicine for us with traveling and with being in one place, and we're learning that we can find what we need in either situation. Some of us express it in different ways.
Mm-hmm. And it's always like, no matter where you are, it's enough, and it's like what you were saying earlier about like surrendering and to just really give it up, and to just really be like, I'm here and I'm ready to commit, and use me. Like you ask spirit to use me. How can I be this vessel? How can I serve my community? How can I be of service to you, the great spirit? Those are the things that are really motivating us and moving us. I don't know. That's what I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a few fire questions that I want to ask you before we head out. So what is your spirit animal?
What first came to mind was an owl. I think that's one of them. I think I have probably more, but
You're the second interview in a row that has said owl.
the second one that comes to mind actually is lynx.
A lynx. I was going to say some kind of like either like panther or like some kind of like cat-like animal. That's great.
Energy. Yeah.
That's great. What has been your mantra lately?
Right here. I am whole and complete. I need nothing in this moment.
I love that.
This card that says this: I am whole and complete. I need nothing in this moment. There's another one this reminds me of from Gabby Bernstein too. I have everything I need, and I welcome so much more. I love that too.
I love that. I love Gabby. She's the bomb. What would you say was the one book, other than Just Be, that really changed the trajectory of your life?
Well, I'll share the one that I'm reading right now, which seems pretty.
Of course, the Sophia Code. Of course. I have my Sophia Code by my bed. I don't know, like Sarah Petruno's reading Sophia Code right now too. God, that book is the best. The ultimate priestess activation.
Yeah, I actually, like, I got it months ago. I went to one of her reading book signings, and but now that the audio version is out, I'm going through with the audio, and it's
so powerful with the initiations, like hearing it.
Yeah. So actually, I just did Hathor this morning. Um, and yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that because that just feels so present right now.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, that's one of the books that like I'll put down and then I pick it up. And when I pick it up, it's like exactly the medicine I need at
Yeah.
that moment. Yes, that makes me so happy. What would you say are some of like the crystals or the tools that you're using right now to help you in your rituals and to help you stay grounded as you do your work here?
Mm. Yeah, I do have some crystals. It's funny. I have my altar next to me, so I'm like, what do I have here? Amethyst is my birthstone. I have some of that here. I also just love quartz crystal, and quartz crystal is, I've heard that it can store memories.
Hmm.
I mentioned to you before that I have this dream of living in a house with like high ceilings and skylights and just so much, and I imagine like women's circles happening there. And actually yesterday I had this friend who's a realtor, and every once in a while he like finds like my dream house and he'll send me a listing and just be like, hey, you want to go look at it? And yesterday we went to see this house and it was beautiful. Just like, yeah, the high ceiling skylights, like light flooding through the windows. And it was just so beautiful for me to be in this state of like going there and in total trust that, like, oh, yeah, this is happening. I can trust that this is happening. I don't know when it's happening, but
It's
how
unfolding as it should.
in the future. And we performed a ceremony actually. And I brought this big quartz crystal, which is in the other room, and I called in all the high guides from the Scipio code, and I I asked universe to just show the way of opening the resources, the space for that house to manifest. And then we passed around the crystal and just like instilled the memory of being in that home. And like so now I feel like that crystal like has a ceremony in it and like a memory in it. And so now when I hold it, that will be activated.
Mm,
We'll see what happens.
such a good practice to share. Thank you so much. Okay, a few more questions. What would Meredith today say to younger Meredith?
You're doing exactly what you needed to do, and you are exactly where you need to be. And it's okay. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel your emotions. It's okay, whatever it is that's coming up right now. You're safe. I love you, and you have so much to look forward to. Keep trusting.
Mm, brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Okay, and the last one is, where can we find more about you? And the book, Just Be?
Yeah, so my website's meredithrom.com, and that leads to links, all the other links. But the book is on Amazon, and people can search for it there. Just Be, search for Self Love in India, or my name.
There'll be a link in the show notes, by the way.
Yeah, and then the Sovereign Circle. So that's risingwomanleaders.com, and that has when this episode goes out, I think there will be a few more days before we begin. So if you feel like a connection to that, I invite you to check that out too.
And you also have your podcast, right?
Yeah, and the podcast. The podcast also at meredithrom.com, and people can listen to episodes there. Or they can search for it on iTunes, Rising Woman Leaders.
Yes. And then one final thing. If you had one piece of advice for everyone listening, what would you say?
I'm going to tune in for a moment. Let's see what wants to come through because there's so much. Even if you don't know it yet, your higher self is with you, is inside of you. And this man or woman is someone that is so radiant and is here to uplift you, to help you, to support you. This being is just, I can see like hands on the back, just supporting you in every step, wanting to help you. And all you have to do is come into that place of humility and ask. And that higher self will be right there to help and to offer that support and the guidance that you need. All you have to do is
An angel on the planet here.
ask.
Thank you so much, Meredith, for taking the time to write the book, have this conversation, just be here. Here, like I even got like some post-it notes and stuff hanging out, just because there's some things that were in here, and like I've got pages folded, and it's like, oh God. And this, I just want to give this one quote that you wrote to close it out about Amma, because I thought it's kind of appropriate. Okay, it says here on page 99, I'm all about the nines. I'm born on the nines, so yeah. Om Shanti is the chapter. And you wrote, Amma shared that there were three things that made a human humane. The first was an intense desire to know the meaning of life. The second, the miraculous ability to give love. And the third, to be joyful and to give joy to others. Yeah, duh. Duh. Obviously. So I just really wanted to share that Amma quote because I know how much she's made an impact in your life and a lot of people's lives. And when I read that, I was like, highlight, page fold, tack. Yes, like need that on my wall. So good. So I just really wanted to give another little taste of the medicine of just be. So thank you for all the work that you're doing and for being here and for using your voice and speaking up and just being you. I love you and I'm so grateful.
Love you, Sabrina. Thank you. Thank you for all the joy and laughter that you bring to these topics. So fun.
Oh, thank you, sister. And thanks everyone for listening. And go pick up the book. It's in the show notes. It's really good. I've heard a few women be like, I can't put it down. And I'm definitely vouching that I too am one of those. Like I just couldn't put it down. Like I literally walked around my house and read it, preparing. So it's so great. It's so great. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you, Meredith, so much. And thank you for everything.